Ethan smiled as he signed the divorce papers, confident the prenup would leave Claire with nothing but a hollow house and a fading name. The sound of the pen scratching across thick legal paper echoed louder than it should have in the polished, sterile room. Outside, Los Angeles was awash in spring light, palms swayed gently. Traffic purred, and the world moved on like nothing monumental had just unraveled. But inside, Claire felt none of that life. Her limbs were leaden, her breath tight and rationed. He slid the folder across the glass table with a flourish, as if he'd just signed an autograph. "You should keep the pen," he said, "a souvenir." Claire stared at the signature for a beat too long. The name Ethan Blake, bold, slanted, confident, sat above hers like a seal of conquest. She picked up the pen, turned it once in her fingers, then laid it beside the papers without comment. Ethan leaned back, the collar of his suit immaculate. "Well," he said, exhaling like a man finishing a workout. "That's that. You've got the house. I've got the freedom. Seems fair." She didn't blink. Her lips were slightly parted, but no words emerged. Her gaze, though, didn't leave his. He chuckled. "I hope you enjoy the echo in that place. Big rooms, small life. But hey, you always liked quiet." Somewhere behind her, Linda Tran shifted in her seat. Claire's attorney had been silent most of the meeting, taking notes in tight shorthand. Her lips pressed into a flat line. She looked up now, but Claire couldn't meet her eyes. Couldn't meet anyone's. A buzz broke the silence. Ethan pulled out his phone, glanced down, and a small smile played on his lips. "Speaking of which," he said, "Sabrina says we can finally start redecorating. I suppose she'll want to rip out the kitchen. You never really used it anyway." Claire felt a needle of heat under her ribs, but her face remained composed. Her voice, when it came, was brittle glass. "Did you bring her to the hearing?" Ethan raised an eyebrow, as if amused. "Would have been poor taste. She's not one for drama." Something in Claire's chest clenched, and her mind flicked, not to Sabrina, not to Ethan, but to her mother's voice. Gentle and wary. "A man who smiles too easily at loss is usually hiding what he's taken." He rose, straightened his cufflinks. "Anyway, you've got your name, your childhood bedroom, and a great view of all the things you didn't get. I'd say we're even." He offered a mock bow and walked out. Silence settled. Claire didn't move. Linda stood, smoothing her skirt, and gathered the signed papers. She checked the pages methodically, initials, dates, stamps. Then she froze. "What?" Claire asked quietly. Linda flipped back a page. Her brows knit together. "This date," she murmured. "The notary's signature. Why would it be a Friday? The courthouse doesn't process filings that late." Claire's eyes drifted to the page. A number circled in neat blue ink stared back. March 31st. Linda flipped through her own legal binder. "Did he ever show you proof the prenup was filed?" Claire hesitated. "No," she said slowly. "He said it was already handled. His attorney filed it the week we signed." Linda didn't speak for a long beat. Her fingers hovered just above the document, then lowered. She leaned in slightly, voice low, careful. "Claire, did he ever show you proof the prenup was filed?" Claire spends her first night alone in the house that once held a life. Now it's just walls and whispers. The silence was dense, a kind of weight pressing into her chest from every corner. She sat on the edge of the mattress that Ethan had insisted was ergonomic, but now just felt like an island adrift in an ocean of bare floorboards. No more framed photos, no more shelves of mismatched books, no glass decanters. Even the scent of his cologne, that spicy cedar arrogance, was gone. She exhaled slowly, curling her toes against the cool hardwood. The air inside the house was stale despite the open windows. Spring in California was supposed to feel forgiving, but everything here felt unthawed. A box sat unopened near the foot of the bed, one of the few labeled in her own handwriting. Claire's memories. Private. She opened it not out of desire, but duty. Near the top lay a photo, slightly bent at the corner. Her and Ethan, 5 years ago, standing in front of the fixer-upper they just bought. They were both covered in paint. Ethan had his arms slung around her shoulder. Beaming, someone had scribbled a caption on the back in thick marker. "Built this from nothing." Together. Claire stared at the words until they blurred. Her hand trembled as she set the photo down. The doorbell rang. Linda stood on the doorstep in jeans and a light coat. holding a paper bag and a look of restrained concern. "I brought jasmine tea," she said, and, an open mind. They sat in the living room, mugs cradled in palms, surrounded by blank walls and hollow echoes. Linda looked around, noting the absence. "He stripped this place." Claire gave a soft, mirthless laugh. "He even took the lemon zester." "Who does that?" Linda didn't answer immediately. She reached into her leather folder and pulled out the prenup copy again. She didn't open it, just let it sit between them like a chessboard with only one move left. Claire's phone buzzed. "Lauren," she answered with a half-smile, one of the few she could still muster. "Hey." Her younger sister's voice crackled on speaker. "You okay?" "Define okay." Lauren snorted. "Okay enough to burn his clothes?" "There's nothing left to burn." Pause. "Hey," Lauren said, tone sharpening. "You ever think he forged something?" Claire's brows drew together. "What do you mean?" "I mean, he's always been shady with details. Always, I'll handle it. Maybe he just didn't file it. Or faked the stamp." Claire looked up at Linda. Linda was already flipping through the pages. Her finger halted. She narrowed her eyes. "There's no court seal," Linda murmured. Claire leaned in. "Isn't it supposed to be here? Bottom right?" Linda nodded slowly. "Filed copies have a seal and a timestamp. This has neither." The air changed. Claire set her mug down. Carefully, as though any sudden motion might collapse the moment. "Are you saying?" Linda tapped the corner of the paper. "He might have drafted it. Signed it. But I don't think he ever filed it." Claire stood abruptly, crossed the room to her laptop. She pulled it from the charger. Fingers already typing before the screen fully brightened. Old email folders. Dozens of threads, lawyers. Design contracts. Ethan's endless property updates. Then she found it. A short exchange from just over a year ago. A forwarded message from Ethan. The subject line. "Prenup filing confirmation?" Below, a reply from Sabrina. "Let me handle filing it. No one else needs to be involved." Jonathan Reeves scans the prenup and whistles. "I've seen cleaner fraud in amateur poker games." Claire sat across from him, her hands folded tightly in her lap. Jonathan's office was the opposite of Ethan's cold precision, walls lined with books. Legal pads stacked in corners. A jazz record playing softly somewhere under the clatter of downtown LA outside. It smelled faintly of ink and old leather. The kind of place where battles were planned, not just fought. "I mean," Jonathan continued, flipping the document over. "Look at this, no court seal. Not even the right notary format for California post-2019. And the dates? Don't even match his tax filings." Linda, perched on the arm of a nearby chair, nodded grimly. He counted on no one looking past the signature. Claire's stomach tightened. "He always said, trust is love. We don't need lawyers between us." Jonathan looked up. That line should be in the Museum of Manipulation. A knock at the door broke the tension. Jonathan stood and opened it without asking. A woman stepped in, early 40s. Elegant in a tailored blazer, but with something in her eyes that suggested wear and erosion. She carried a thin file and a small, cautious smile. "Claire, meet Megan Ross," Jonathan said. "She's been where you are." Claire stood slowly. They shook hands. Briefly. "I was married to a man named Derek," Megan said. "In Scottsdale. Sabrina was our financial advisor." Her lips curled bitterly. She told him about prenups. How to protect himself. Said she had templates. "She filed one under my name, never showed me. Never had it notarized, but he believed it was real. So did his lawyers." Claire swallowed. "You're saying she's done this before?" Megan nodded. "I lost everything. Spent 2 years trying to unravel it. Only got partial restitution when I proved Sabrina used a fake notary, someone who'd been dead since 2011. Jonathan turned to a legal pad. Scribbled rapidly. "Alias? Melissa J." Megan replied. "Out of Phoenix. Same voice. Same signature style. Different license number." Claire's breath caught. Sabrina had always insisted on being hands-on. Had offered to file things. Had access to everything Ethan touched. Jonathan leaned in. "This isn't a prenup issue. It's a criminal pattern. Fraud. Conspiracy. Maybe even identity misuse." Linda narrowed her eyes. "She's playing the long game. Building these men up, then gutting their wives' claims." Megan opened her file, revealing printouts, bank transfers, text screenshots, screenshots of emails. She uses burner phones. rotates IP addresses. And she's smart, charming. The men think she's their savior. Claire's voice was tight. And the women? They call us bitter, Megan said. Until the court sees numbers. Jonathan looked at Claire, his expression softening just slightly. You ready? Claire hesitated, her thumb grazing a fold in her coat pocket. I don't know what I'm ready for, she admitted, but I know I'm done being polite. Jonathan smiled, for the first time without irony. Then we're going to war. Quietly, Claire looked down at Megan's evidence, at the mess Sabrina had left behind, and all the lives tangled in the wreckage. She spoke barely above a whisper, but her voice carried the force of steel. Let's make sure they never do this to another woman again. Claire invites Sabrina for coffee. Sabrina shows up like it's a brunch date, not a trap. The clack of heels on concrete was precise, confident, measured. Sabrina Moore appeared in a blush-colored silk blouse, oversized sunglasses, and the kind of effortless smile that made passers-by think she owned the street. She slid into the patio chair across from Claire with a practiced grace, setting her designer handbag down like it, too, had reservations. You look refreshed, Sabrina said, removing her sunglasses with a slow flourish. Divorce suits you. Claire smiled politely, fingers around her cappuccino cup. Freedom has its glow. Sunlight glinted off the silver spoons and glass cups around them. A faint jazz tune filtered out from inside the cafe. Claire's heart beat in an entirely different rhythm, one far less elegant. Under the table, a tiny mic taped to her blouse was transmitting every word. Jonathan had said, narcissists love to gloat. Let her feel like she's already won. He was 3 tables down, behind a laptop and a pair of fake reading glasses. The audio tech sat nearby, sipping mineral water, monitoring waveforms on a discrete device inside a messenger bag. Sabrina leaned forward. So tell me, are you planning a find-yourself trip? Bali? Tuscany? Claire tilted her head. I'm thinking of staying here. Rebuilding. Sabrina's laugh was gentle, nearly sympathetic. Darling, LA doesn't forgive. It watches. But I'm glad you're handling this with dignity. Claire took a slow sip. And you? How's Ethan? Sabrina's eyes sparkled. Busy. Rebranding. We're looking at new investments. Maybe Scottsdale real estate. I've always had a flair for fresh starts. Claire let her gaze drift to the street. Then back. I keep thinking about that prenup. All that fuss over paperwork. Sabrina waved a hand, dismissing the thought. It was just a formality. Claire offered a small, calculated smile. But it was filed, right? I mean, Ethan said it was. Sabrina's mouth twitched into something like amusement. Claire, do you really think I'd leave something like that up to Ethan? She leaned in, tone honeyed. Let's just say, I made sure the prenup was just a piece of paper. Ethan didn't need to know the logistics. Claire forced a light laugh. You handled it yourself? Of course. Sabrina picked up her latte. If that document was never properly filed, technically, it's useless. But who checks? She chuckled. Unbothered. People assume the stamp means everything. Truth is, you only need confidence. Claire nodded, letting the silence linger. From across the patio, Jonathan looked up. His expression didn't change, but he slowly lowered his glasses and mouthed 2 words. Got it. Ethan walks into the courtroom grinning. Claire follows, calm as a still lake before a storm. The fluorescent lights above the Superior Court of California buzzed faintly, casting everything in a sterile glow. Rows of oak pews framed the center aisle, where attorneys murmured over files and clerks shuffled paper with bored precision. The courtroom air was cold, almost reverent, like a cathedral of consequence. Ethan's shoes clicked confidently against the floor as he strode in, nodding at no one in particular. His suit was midnight blue, perfectly tailored, and his expression said he'd already won. He winked at someone behind Claire, probably Sabrina, seated just 2 rows back, hiding behind oversized sunglasses and a falsely serene face. Claire walked in after him, spine straight, lips neutral. She wore navy slacks and a crisp blouse. Nothing about her posture spoke of fury or fear. She took her seat beside Jonathan and Linda, who each gave a quick nod. Her palms were cold, her eyes steady. Across the aisle, Ethan leaned over to his lawyer and muttered something with a smirk. The lawyer chuckled, too loud for the room. Claire didn't look. Judge Roberts entered, a tall man with a firm gaze and little tolerance for theater. Let's proceed. Ethan's counsel was first to rise. Your Honor, as submitted, the prenuptial agreement clearly outlines the division of assets. Mr. Blake has upheld all terms to date, and we ask the court to recognize its validity and finality. He presented the documents, clipped and bound, as if they were scripture. Judge Roberts turned to the opposing table. Response? Jonathan stood. Your Honor, we object to the enforcement of the document on the grounds of procedural invalidity and willful misrepresentation. We present supplemental evidence, including an audio recording that directly contradicts the assertion that this prenup was ever legally filed. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Ethan shifted in his seat, finally glancing across the aisle. Linda stood and handed a flash drive to the bailiff. Judge Roberts inserted it into a console built into the bench. You'll want to listen closely, Jonathan said, not to the judge, but to Ethan. The courtroom hushed. Sabrina's voice poured from the speakers. Light and smug. Let's just say, I made sure the prenup was just a piece of paper. Ethan didn't need to know the logistics. If that document was never properly filed, technically, it's useless. But who checks? Silence followed, heavy, pregnant. Ethan's face stiffened, a crack forming in his armor. Jonathan handed the judge a folder. Your Honor, further review shows the document lacks a court seal, a certified filing number, and the notarization is dated during a known holiday. We believe this proves fraudulent intent and procedural negligence. Judge Roberts leaned back, reading quickly. Then he looked up. This agreement was never legally binding. Ms. Dawson retains equal claim to all shared assets. Ethan opened his mouth, but no sound emerged. Sabrina adjusted her sunglasses. Before anyone could move, two men in dark suits stepped forward from the side doors. They didn't make a scene. No cuffs, no raised voices, just a quiet motion. A badge flashed, and Sabrina's name spoken in low tones. Claire didn't turn around, but she heard the heels pause, then resume, as two federal agents quietly escorted Sabrina out of the courtroom. Sabrina crosses her legs in the interrogation room like she owns it, until they show her the list of aliases. The fluorescent lights buzzed mercilessly above the stark white walls of the LAPD's downtown precinct. Sabrina sat poised, one knee over the other. Blazer still crisp, red lips untouched. She tapped a manicured nail against the metal tabletop in steady rhythm. A performance of composure. She smiled when the door opened. Detective Rosa Martinez stepped inside. A small woman with eyes that missed nothing. She carried no folders, just a USB drive and a comm that made Sabrina finally stop tapping. You've got about an hour, Martinez said, sliding the drive into a laptop. Then this goes federal. Sabrina raised an eyebrow. I assume you'd like me to cry or confess. I'd like you to listen. The screen lit up with a map. Dots blinked across it. Scottsdale, Austin, Tampa, Seattle. We matched your voice from the Dawson case to 6 other fraud reports. Prenups that vanished. Stamps that never existed. One fake notary was a hospice patient. Another, get this, died in 2012. Sabrina's smile flickered. We also have IP matches. You used the alias, Melissa J., in Arizona, and Trina Foster, in Austin. And a prepaid credit card linked to a P.O. box in Burbank you rented under a third identity, Susan D. Sabrina uncrossed her legs slowly. That proves what? I'm creative? Martinez leaned forward. It proves you're not working alone. And when people like you get caught, they're either useful, or extradited. A pause. Sabrina looked away, lips pressed together. For a moment, she looked genuinely tired. Martinez pushed again. Every pattern has a crack. Especially when it's repeated. We know Ethan Blake was central in this one. But we don't know what he's hiding. You help us fill in the blanks. You walk away with leniency. Still silence. Martinez pulled a paper from her coat. We found this yesterday. She slid it across the table. Sabrina read the document once. And then again, more slowly. Bank transactions. A forged signature. A company in the Cayman Islands listing Claire Dawson as CEO. Her lips parted. He said that was just a placeholder. For a trust. Martinez didn't speak. Sabrina's voice grew lower. He said I'd never be on paper for anything. He promised, if anyone found the accounts, it'd look like hers. Another silence. Martinez said nothing, just waited. Sabrina exhaled sharply, picked up the pen. She signed the cooperation agreement. One floor above, Jonathan stood in the hallway, speaking into a phone. Yes, he said calmly. She flipped. Claire answered after a beat. Her voice was guarded. And? She's naming names. And banks. A chime echoed through her apartment. Claire checked her laptop. One secure file had arrived from the district attorney's office. She opened it. Her breath caught. On the screen, in official typeface, was her full name, Claire Dawson, listed as the CEO of a Cayman Islands holding company she had never heard of. Claire stares at her own forged signature, under a corporation she never built. Hoarding millions she never touched. The signature looped perfectly, her name in familiar slanting cursive. But it wasn't hers. It was Ethan's version, too neat. Too deliberate. Forged with a care that only made the violation worse. The document sat at the center of Jonathan's polished desk, next to a spreadsheet of wire transfers and a chart that traced a complex web of shell companies, each one looping back to Ethan like invisible string. Claire's voice was barely above a whisper. He used my name, as a front. Jonathan nodded, eyes heavy with grim confirmation. The first company was formed a year before your mother passed, right after Ethan took over managing your joint finances. He funneled the bulk of her inheritance into offshore accounts, without your signature. Without your knowledge. Linda sat across the room, arms folded tightly, trying to remain composed. We've got 4 companies so far. All show you as CEO or CFO. All controlled from an IP address registered to Ethan's office. Claire leaned back, the weight of the information crashing against her chest in waves. I take care of the paperwork so you can focus on us. He had said that during a trip to Lake Arrowhead, when she'd hesitated about signing the power of attorney form. She remembered the way his hands rested on hers. Warm, persuasive. Claire, Jonathan said gently, we're going to the feds with this. You're not just a victim of fraud. You're their key witness. She didn't answer, just stood, excused herself quietly, and stepped out into the Los Angeles afternoon. An hour later, Claire pulled into the driveway of her childhood home in Pasadena. The old house hadn't changed, white shutters, overgrown jasmine along the fence, the faint scent of citrus from the backyard lemon tree. It was the only place left where her name still meant something untouched. Inside, dust danced in the golden afternoon light. She moved to the hall closet, reached for a small cedar box her mother had kept. Within it, folded letters, yellowing photos, and one sealed envelope labeled for Claire. When the noise is too loud. She opened it slowly. My darling girl, you were never meant to carry the weight of someone else's ego. A partner should lift you, not eclipse you. If you ever feel like your light is fading, remember, silence is not the same as peace. And your name? Your name is sacred. Protect it. Love, Mom. The letters slipped from her fingers onto the carpet. Claire pressed her hands to her face, the sob tearing through her throat so fast she didn't feel it coming. He stole my name, she gasped. My mother's legacy, everything sacred. The phone buzzed once. She didn't want to look, but she did. A text from Linda. FBI needs you tomorrow. They're opening the federal case. They want you to testify. Ethan opens his front door in a silk robe. The FBI cuffs him before he can finish his espresso. The sun was barely up over the Pacific when Ethan Blake padded into his minimalist kitchen. His silk robe swishing against the marble floors. His espresso machine hummed softly. Precise and expensive, just the way he liked things. The ceramic cup barely touched his lips when the sharp, synchronized knock split the morning. He opened the door with a lazy smirk. Can I help? Ethan Blake? The taller agent asked. Before Ethan could reply, metal clicked around his wrists. You're under arrest for identity theft, financial fraud, and conspiracy to defraud the federal government. His espresso cup shattered on the porch. In the following hours, the house was swarmed, agents sweeping through closets, seizing laptops, emptying drawers of passports and hard drives. His accounts, investments, real estate portfolios, frozen in one silent sweep. At the courthouse, Ethan's smirk returned like muscle memory. He wore a gray suit, slightly wrinkled from detainment but no less smug. He spotted Claire across the courtroom and gave her a slow, deliberate nod. Claire didn't return it. The hearing was quick. Sabrina, already in custody, sat 2 rows behind the prosecution. Her expression unreadable. No makeup now, just eyes sharp with something between shame and strategy. Ethan's attorney pushed for reduced charges, citing lack of direct financial harm. Then Claire stood. The room hushed. She wore a dark navy dress, her hair tied back. There was no tremble in her voice. "I didn't survive you," she said, her gaze locked on Ethan's. "I outgrew you. Every dollar you tried to bury me with, every name you stole, every document you falsified, was meant to make me smaller. But I learned that silence doesn't mean surrender. It means strategy. And now? The paper trail you left is the rope you've tied around your own neck." Ethan blinked. No grin now. The judge called for a recess. The agents led Ethan back through the side door. Sabrina glanced at Claire. Something subtle? Approval? Or envy? Claire walked out without waiting to find out. Back home that evening, the sun cast long shadows across her hardwood floors. The house felt quieter now, not hollow. Just still. Near the front door, she noticed a package. No return address. She opened it slowly. Inside was a photograph of her mother's will. Familiar in layout, except for one thing. There was a final page. She'd never seen it before. Claire stands on a stage beneath a banner that reads, "Justice Beyond Paper." The lights above the podium cast a soft glow over the crowd gathered in the restored warehouse-turned-event hall in San Francisco. Rows of folding chairs were filled with women in business attire. Nonprofits, law students, survivors. Behind Claire, the banner stretched wide in white and gold, "Justice Beyond Paper." She took a breath, steadying herself. The room quieted as she stepped to the mic. "My name is Claire Dawson," she began, "and for a long time, I thought justice was something you waited for. Something passive, something, on paper." A ripple of knowing nods moved through the room. She continued, voice clear, "But paper can lie. Paper can be forged. What can't be faked is what you do after. What you act upon." Her words were met with silence, not awkward, but reverent. "I'm not here as a lawyer. I'm not here as a victim. I'm here as someone who took back her name. And now I want to help others do the same." Thunderous applause rose, echoing off the brick walls. Linda stood near the wings, smiling with a kind of pride that didn't need words. Jonathan leaned against a post in the back, arms folded, watching, not to guide her, but to witness. After the speech, Claire moved through the mingling crowd with grace. She hugged a tearful donor. She shook hands with a professor from Stanford. Then Megan Ross approached, wearing this simple navy dress and holding a folder. "I want to volunteer," Megan said. "There are so many more of us. I kept thinking someone else would do something. But maybe we're the someone." Claire nodded, holding her gaze. "You already are." Later, in a quieter moment, Jonathan found her near the refreshment table. He held out a small box. "For your next chapter," he said. Inside, nestled in navy velvet, was a fountain pen, sleek, gold-trimmed, engraved on the barrel, "You own your name." Claire didn't cry, but her smile was the kind that could light up wounds too deep for words. Not out of triumph, but peace. She stood for a photo beneath the banner. Arm around Megan, Linda to her right. Her phone buzzed in her purse. Claire stepped aside, glancing down at the screen. One new encrypted message. From unknown at securemail.pro. Subject: "My turn to clean house." From Sabrina. Claire looks out over the San Francisco skyline, free. For the first time in years. The sun dipped low over the bay, turning glass towers into liquid gold and casting long shadows across the terrace. From her penthouse balcony, Claire let the wind touch her hair, the last light warming her bare arms. The city stretched beneath her like a new page, unmarked and quiet. Somewhere below, a car honked. A cable car's bell echoed faintly. The city moved, pulsed, unaware of her stillness, but that was the point. For once, life didn't need her reaction. Inside, the television hummed with muted news. A chyron scrolled. Ethan Blake sentenced to 18 years in federal prison. Claire barely glanced. She didn't need the sound. She'd already read the file. Testified. Watched him try to shrink behind jargon and charm, and fail. On the kitchen island, 2 wineglasses waited. Lauren emerged from the hallway in jeans and bare feet, holding a box of takeout. They put the chopsticks in upside down again. Claire chuckled, her voice lighter than she remembered. At least they got the sauce right. They sat together on the balcony's edge. Containers opened between them. Conversation danced from childhood stories to future travel plans. No bitterness, just possibility. Have you thought about writing a book? Lauren asked between bites. Claire considered. Not yet. Maybe. For now. I'm still figuring out who I am without the war. You're someone who made it out. Lauren said gently. That's rare. Claire didn't answer right away. She looked up at the soft orange haze settling over the city. And for the first time in years, she didn't feel a knot in her chest. Just air. Jonathan arrived just before dusk. His steps soft on the hardwood. I brought that bookstore gift card I owe you, he said, holding it up like a peace offering. Claire smiled. Come walk with me. I've been eyeing a new journal. They left the dishes half cleared and stepped into the elevator, descending into the street like any normal evening. No courtrooms, no hidden mics, just cool summer air and the sound of conversation floating through sidewalk cafes. Back upstairs, Claire's phone lit up on the countertop. One encrypted message, no sender name. She opened it when she returned. Now it's your turn to decide what justice looks like. What began with silence and signatures ended in handcuffs and clarity. Claire's fight wasn't just about reclaiming assets. It was about reclaiming the voice she was once told to quiet. Like the final chord of a long-forgotten melody. Justice may arrive late, but it resonates powerfully once it's heard. When injustice is met with unwavering courage, the verdict can echo across lifetimes. No wall of lies can stand forever against the tide of truth.